So I was watching an interview with the Red Wings. It was a Red Wings interview, and it was Steve Yzerman. He was asked to basically assess the moves he made in free agency, and he described forward Dominik Kubalik as a quote-unquote pleasant surprise. And perhaps the GM anticipated that Kubalik would be retained by his former team, which was the Chicago Blackhawks, and perhaps he also figured that there would be more competition for the 26-year-old winger. And after all, signing a player who had 62 goals over the last 3 seasons to a 2-year deal that carries a cap hit of just $2.5 million has to be seen as a high-value move for him and the Red Wings. But if you ask Dominik Kubalik this question, he'll tell you that he anticipated moving on from the Blackhawks a lot sooner. Quote-unquote, what he said was, "I kind of expected something during the deadline, which was something surprising for me that I didn't get traded because all the rumors were around and I kind of felt like it was going to happen." End quote. Instead, he finished out the season with the Blackhawks, and after the season was over, instead of retaining his services via a qualifying offer, Chicago elected to let the Czechia native become an unrestricted free agent, free to sign with any team. 1 year after the same set of circumstances landed Pius Suter with the Red Wings, Kubalik now becomes the latest Blackhawk to cross over Lake Michigan and head into Detroit. Kubalik also said, quote-unquote, "When I was younger, I was usually following the original 6 teams. It's a big deal. It used to be even bigger." End quote. He also said of joining his second Original 6 franchise, he further elaborated that he remembers watching a VHS tape of Dominik Hasek winning the Stanley Cup with the Red Wings. And while playing for an Original 6 franchise is certainly a big deal, the Red Wings are currently hoping that Kubalik becomes something of a big deal himself. And so let's get into why Kubalik is, quote-unquote, the pleasant surprise. As a 24-year-old rookie during the 2019 COVID-shortened season, Kubalik impressed by scoring 30 goals and 46 points through 68 games. That stat line was good enough to make him a finalist for the Calder Trophy, awards the NHL's Rookie of the Year. Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche went on to win the award, but Kubalik had announced himself as found money for the Blackhawks after Chicago traded a 2019 fifth-round pick to the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for his signing rights, because the Kings originally acquired him with the 191st pick of the 2013 draft. Asked what was the secret to his success, he deferred it to his line mates. He said, quote-unquote, "I think the chemistry with Jonathan Toews and Brandon Saad was amazing. I felt like right away it started clicking." End quote. This sentiment was more or less confirmed when people asked Blackhawks reporter Brooke LaFurno about his line mates in Chicago. LaFurno explained that throughout all the different line mates he had, the most consistent one had been Jonathan Toews, and that's the one he had the most success and chemistry with. End quote. He also said that it worked because their games complement each other because Toews can play a two-way role, while Kubalik's main strength is offense, end quote. To that point, Kubalik was also quick to point out that he had a down year offensively during the 2020-21 season, due in part to Toews missing the entire season with an illness. He said that "I was up and down in the lineup, and I think the second half of the season was much better," and that's basically his view on the 2020-21 campaign. But the year after that, Kubalik played 78 games, by far the most of his 3-year career in the NHL, and despite him finishing with the lowest goal total, which was 15, and point total, which was 32, of his entire career, he continued to struggle and mirrored those of his team. Despite that, he finished with the lowest goal and point total, 15 and 32 respectively, of his entire NHL career. His struggles mirrored those of the team he played for, as he was outplayed on the ice more than often not. Even with Toews back in the lineup, his season, along with the Blackhawks, quickly became one to forget. Declining point and goal totals can be a harbinger of a player's winning status as an NHL player. Countless players have come through the league and has one really strong season before completely fizzling out and becoming nothing more than the answer to an obscure question on trivia night. Those concerns will hover over Kubalik until he does something to answer them, but Brooke LaFurno is not concerned. She said, "I wouldn't worry too much, it was just a bad year." She also said, "I think a lack of confidence caused a drop in his production. You could see it throughout the year that he just didn't look like himself. He is a first shoot player, and that game style has always worked for him because he is a naturally gifted goal scorer." End quote. She also remarked on how the scoring forward started to look for passing opportunities rather than opportunities to score. And that's a sure sign of a player that doesn't have confidence in themselves. And despite Toews' return to the lineup, Kubalik found himself moving up and down the lineup as Derek King, the Blackhawks interim head coach last season, tried to find a spark for the Czech forward. But obviously, as time has always shown us, you can't go back, and so therefore his last season was pretty much behind his back, and he's looking forward to trying to rediscover his scoring touch with the Detroit Red Wings. When Kubalik was asked if he's spoken to any of the Red Wings players he already knew, He mentioned that he spoke with defenseman Filip Hronek, the longest tenured defenseman on Detroit's roster, for 40 minutes in the aftermath of the signing. During that conversation, it's easy to imagine that Hronek brought up their countrymen Jakub Vrana and Filip Zadina, the latter of which Kubalik should have an opportunity to establish an early chemistry with. Several media outlets have projected the Red Wings' third line to consist of Zadina and Kubalik on the wing, while Pia Suter, his former teammate, would be front at center. Over the last 2 seasons, Suter has established himself as a non-flashy utility player that makes up for his lack of offensive explosiveness by making a solid impact in all areas of the game. Zadina, on the other hand, has flashed the kind of game-breaking talent that made him the 6th overall pick in the 2018 draft, but has recently been mirrored in his own slump fueled by inconsistency and a lack of confidence. It's easy to see how this trio would work together. Suter would be the two-way center, similarly to what Kubalik had been doing with Jonathan Toews, that plays a complementary role to his wingers. Zadina would take on a playmaking role because, as Lafreno states, Kubalik is better at finishing opportunities than creating them. She said if he's not scoring, he doesn't provide much else because he isn't exactly a playmaker either. But that's not to say he cannot be with the right line mates. End quote. This also highlights what Kubalik will bring to Detroit's power play. Outside of Vrana, the Red Wings didn't really have any bona fide triggermen that put an emphasis on shooting the puck and shooting it well. With Vrana likely on the team's top power play unit, Kubalik would provide the same shooter's mentality on the team's second power play unit. With Zadina and Hronek likely to be on that second unit, the Red Wings have a real chance at icing 2 power plays that can do some damage, something they haven't been able to do before Yzerman took over as GM in the spring of 2019. Through 202 regular season games in the NHL, Kubalik has had a goal per game rate of .31. Over a full 82-game season, that equates to a little under 25.5 goals a season. Admittedly, the last 3 seasons may be the most unreliable sample to pull from given everything that has gone with the NHL and around the world with COVID and all that stuff. But the fact remains that this forward has proven that he has a knack for putting pucks behind goaltenders. If he could supply 20 to 25 goals in a third line this season, that is well worth the $2.5 million he's making this season and next season. If unfortunately this doesn't work out and the last 2 seasons prove to be closer to the reality of what this player really is, then the 2-year term isn't going to handcuff the Red Wings. In fact, the chances of this deal coming back to haunt the Red Wings seem slim to none simply because of the 2-year commitment. This is a classic case of low risk, high reward, as Kubalik could very well return form the next season while playing on one of the better value contracts on the team. But for Kubalik, the idea of this signing carrying any sort of risk is far from his mind. For him, this is an opportunity for a clean slate with an up-and-coming team. This is an opportunity to assert himself as one of the pure snipers in the NHL. Kubalik said, "My thoughts are that I'm here to help. I'm hoping that I can do much better than I did last year. I know it's in me, and I'm going to do everything I can to prove it." End quote. Thank you guys for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.